Welcome to the Barre Beat podcast, live from Fly on the Wall Productions. Is it studio or productions?
It's productions.
It's productions.
Fly on the Wall Productions.
Main Street, Barre, Vermont. In-house with us, of course, we have the lovely Raylene.
Good evening, everyone.
And for special guests tonight, we have Tim Boltin, candidate for Ward 1, and Damian Mason.
Hello.
Good
Hello.
evening, gentlemen.
Hi, guys.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing good. It's been a long day.
Has it?
My day starts early every day.
Yeah, I bet it does. You run the bakery. Lots of fun.
Yep.
So yeah, we wanted to have Tim come in, since he is running for Ward 1. We did extend the offer to every candidate to come into the Barre Beat podcast. If somebody felt uncomfortable with me being on as the show person, we would have let somebody else. Well, Raylene would have driven, but somebody else would have been on. So we're going to talk about the packet, and since Tim is here, we're certainly going to ask him a couple questions and see,
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to do that.
100%. So I guess we'll just jump in real quick on the packet,
Okay.
and let people know what's going on tomorrow night. The first thing that we're going to have a presentation by Ideal Vermont, or Ideal Vermont. So that's a program that is sponsored, well, not sponsored, but coming out of the Scott administration. Councillor Stockwell and Lozon have invited the representatives for Ideal to give a presentation. And like I said, it's a not nationwide, but a statewide program from the Scott administration. And they're gonna encourage municipalities to focus more on proactively and more proactively on equity and inclusion and stuff like that. So
Good.
so it will be like a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and then
It'll be good to hear from them and to see what ideas they may have to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know that the next item on the list you're going to be able to give some information on. So there's the allocation of the $40,000 in opioid settlement funds to Turning Point. And I know Bob. I don't really know much about the program, but I do know that there's $40,000 is going to help the reverberation or reverberations, that's not a word, but to fix up the building that they're going to be located in. That
they're going to relocate, which they desperately need. More space to hold. They hold counseling sessions. They hold all kinds of peer support groups. All of their recovery coaches work out of there, get trained there, do stuff. It's a really good organization that we desperately need, and really we need it to grow even bigger than what it is right now. Yeah. And once they're in a bigger space, and they'll have more opportunity to also invite the community in as well to learn a little more about what's happening and how they can help.
All right. And then after that, we will be talking about the FY24 budget. Nicholas is going to be giving a budget presentation, and then we're going to do just a hearing,
which he's done a great job with, by the way. And and we were fortunate enough to have him in here and give us a nice wrap up of the budget in pretty good detail. And I would assume that if anybody still has questions about that they can reach out to him. Absolutely. He is very, very approachable. Good guy. We're lucky to have him.
100% agree. And you can certainly go back and watch on the Barre Beat for that presentation. I do know that it's also going to be streaming. It probably is no longer streaming because we've already streamed it once. to Central Vermont CVTV.
Yes.
And as a side note, we do stream to, or we don't stream, they play back our show.
Right.
So for those that are watching on CVTV, this is a show geared for adults because we're talking about politics. And sometimes some people
Me. Get a little rough around the edges.
get a little rough around the edges. Yeah. Maybe, let things slip. Yeah.
Yeah. I cuss a little.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So you don't cuss that much. But yeah, we just want to give people a heads up that, if somebody accidentally slips and says a naughty word,
Right.
Just be prepared.
Yeah. Happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. And then, of course, we are on the consent agenda. We're appointing Councilor Thomas Lozon as an animal control committee member to back up for Michael Deering, just in case there's any, not just Michael Deering, but anybody, a backup, if there's ever any conflict.
That needs to recuse for
Correct.
a certain reason.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's pretty much it. And you've seen the packet. Anything you want to discuss or?
No, I think that we kind of just did. I gave my thoughts on Turning Point, and I think that the presentation will be good. I believe that it is what was asked of the council to try to help facilitate and do anyways. So it's a good direction to move in, and yeah.
All right.
It should be a fairly easy evening. Maybe you'll even get out early,
Yeah, right.
like before 9. You never know.
Maybe. Probably not. Well, that does about it, right? Is that it?
Yeah.
We're all done? We're all done? No, we're not.
No, we're not all done. We're going to talk to Tim, and we're going to learn about his campaign and what he's got going on.
Absolutely. So, Tim,
Yes.
welcome again to the Barre Beat podcast.
Thank you very much.
So, tell me, what's going on?
Well, I'm running for city councilor for Ward 1. I've lived here for 18 years because my oldest child is almost 18 years old. Ooh. And that's how I know. That's how I track that information. Now, what day her birthday is, I have no idea. But, and that's the
Hopefully,
running joke
Sophia's
in the
not
household.
watching.
Well, I have two daughters. One is
Right?
on the
Sophie.
3rd of the month, and one is on the 4th of the month. Different months, but I get those confused from time to time. And then Sophia, God bless her, was born at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something silly like that. So, it just depends on which time zone you were in as to what her actual birthday is. But, so I'm running for city council. I've lived here a long time. Felt like it was my obligation, my duty, my responsibility, whatever word you would like to use, to actually get involved with what's going on in town.
Nice. And I know that you're currently serving on school board. After 6 years, you're retiring.
Yes.
I'm going to be taking your spot on that.
Yes.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope
Yes,
so.
hopefully.
Yeah. I did one stint where I was a pickup for somebody who'd resigned from the board, and then I ran my own and did my time on that. So yeah, it's largely a very huge learning process to get on school board. You have no idea that things can be, and a lot of times are, as complicated as they really are to make a simple decision.
Oof. Well, so why don't you introduce your friend?
Well, my wife and I moved here 18 years ago. We moved here from living in Europe, where I had lived in Europe for 15 years. We had a large collection of friends that were in and out of our house all the time. We were in and out of their houses. And so one of the things that we decided when my wife and I moved here was we really wanted to make a difference. We wanted to get involved with the community. We wanted to be involved. That's who we are. And so through church, we actually met Damien. And Damien came over for dinner one night. The first night we ever met him, the one food he does not like is green beans.
And that's what you had on.
And that's
the
what I
table.
had for dinner.
Yeah.
And he ate them anyway. So we liked Damien, and so we took him in. He came to live with us and finished high school.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
So
Nice.
That's pretty awesome.
no formalities except, these are the rules for living here, but that's kind of it.
There was a whole sheet.
Yeah. And then you remained friends,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, Damien has been, it's funny because when Damien moved in with us, Sophia must have been 3 or 4 years old.
Yep.
And it was kind of funny because I went from having a small child to a teenage boy who was wrestling and all this other stuff that I had no knowledge of whatsoever. So, and then also dealing with the school, because I spent a good bit of time back and forth to the school with him, because he was just trying to finish. We wanted him to finish high school and be gone, and that was what we were kind of after.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first sort of invasion of the school, so to speak, so I could figure out what was going on there. But so we've been friends. He joined the Army Reserve, Army Guard, and we talked through that because I'm retired Air Force, and we've done some traveling with Damien and just watched him grow up. Now he's got his own child, and life is good.
Well, that's good.
That is good.
So, and now besides being Tim Boltin, man who is running for Ward 1 council seat, you are also a local business owner.
Yep. Well, when I quote unquote retired from the Air Force 18 years ago, and I use those great big words, with the air quotes everybody likes, I was too young to kind of sit home and do nothing. My wife made it clear I would drive her insane, and we couldn't afford that. So I went to culinary school at New England Culinary. My wife started studying photography, and so I needed to find another hobby. And I had done enough jobs in the military where I really knew that I didn't want to sit behind a desk all day, and I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to do something fairly social, but not too social. So culinary school was kind of something I'd always been interested in. I obviously like food, as you can tell. And so I just really wanted to kind of get more of the understanding of how that works. So when I finished, I worked at Sugarbush for a year, and then I worked at Blue Cross for a number of years. And then my friend Michelle, who opened Delicate Decadence, was ready to be done with that and said, "You should buy this. This is exactly what you do every day." And so 11 years ago, that's what I did.
Wow.
And I'm just going to assume that somebody, as a business owner, as a chef, especially a chef that has gone through COVID and the recent decline in employees and ability to get certain things, that you possess the ability to step and fetch and replan quickly.
Yeah, that is, if a chef starts his day doing what he started out doing for the next 15 minutes and he's had a success, my day normally starts out at 5 and then it changes by 8 o'clock when the first customer walks in the door. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things you have to do, and especially in this day and age, is be more nimble, more interested in what your customer wants, and being able to interpret that and do it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. There's not, obviously I can't make beef Wellington in 15 minutes, and whoever thinks they could do that, more power to you. But the catch is being able to offer the customer something that they want or like that is going to be fairly on the money. And learning to deal with COVID. Oh my God. I was telling somebody the other day, for the first time since COVID, I have enough staff. Mm-hmm. First time. Now, trained staff? No. But staff.
But you're working on it.
Right, you're working on it.
And I've been really lucky that the current staff I have right now are all very interested in what we're doing, and that's 90% of the battle. Mm-hmm.
So now you take special orders, right?
Yeah.
So if I had like a order of something that's a British delicacy, that you could make that?
I can make it. I've looked it up. I have seen the recipe.
I don't know what the other terminology is, but you can look, folks that are wanting to know, you can look up spotted for
It's
for
it's like a baked boiled British cake.
yes. So you can Google that if you want to, and laugh as well. So we've actually got a question here from Alice Farrell, for Barrytown. Tim, what is your view on developing downtown housing, meaning non-subsidized apartments that elders, singles, children, childless couples would be attracted to?
Well, one of the things, one of the beauties of my life is that I've been able to travel around the world, and I've done a lot of travels in places where people actually commingle. You don't put the old people over here and the people with challenges over here and the young people over here. They're actually commingled. There are several developments that I've seen in the last 30 years where there is a mixture of apartments and living spaces that actually commingle people together. I don't know if the ones I have seen have been subsidized, but here's the catch. That can work if people want to do it. Only if they want to do it. When I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba, one of these strange places on the planet, the entire downtown, the old shopping area is connected buildings. All the storefronts, they're all connected. And up top is apartments, office spaces, and things like that. I always thought that was really fascinating. When I lived in North Dakota, I actually lived in what was the old Woolworth department store that had been converted into apartments. And downstairs was a Chinese food place that I ate at probably about 5 times a week. And I learned to eat all kinds of Chinese because the nightly special was $7.95.
So would you be opposed to seeing that here on Main Street in Barrie,
not
where
at all.
the upstairs?
Well, for me, I think it's the beauty of being close to people. Mm-hmm. On my street where I live on French Street, my next door neighbor is an elderly lady. The next door neighbor is an elderly lady. Across the street is a parsonage. The house down on the end of the street, I think they have 4 or 5 kids. I can't remember. I lose count. But to me, the beauty of living in a place like this is where you actually get to meet your neighbors. I mean, the catch is, one of the things that we kind of lose here in Vermont, and we've only lived here 18 years, is you don't really meet neighbors unless you're very intentional about it. Mm-hmm. Vermonters have this sort of standoff, do your own thing. My father and I have had many conversations about that. But the catch is to put yourself in a situation where you do get to know your neighbors. My neighbor 2 doors down, Gloria, every Easter she comes and leaves candy on the doorknobs of our house for the girls, and they're old enough not to need somebody else's candy. But
so regarding that, because that is certainly a great idea, but as a city councilor, what can you do in that role to make that happen? What do you bring to the table to make that kind of development happen?
Well, one of the things that I feel like you have to do is you have to have partners who want to do this kind of stuff, right? I mean, we all want to live in a gated, segregated community, which I have no interest in, right? A lot of people do. I actually like interacting. So if that is the vision, then that's what I'll do. But the other part, the big part, is just making sure that the research is there, the numbers are there, people who can tell you more information about how this works, what this looks like is there. And then really getting involved with people like Barrie Air Development, with like the Barrie Partnership. How can you make this work? Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of downtown Barrie taxes. I pay my own taxes, thank you, with that 1% local option tax that I didn't vote for. But the idea is you really want to bring these players to the table who know about development. Surely somebody knows more about develop than I do. It's amazing to me, the last time that people were discussing the Ward 5 school, which I think is an interesting idea, and I know very little about it. I started asking some questions of people that I know that build. And a good friend of mine out at that lives out in Waitsfield builds $1 million houses. And I was like, do these numbers make sense to you? And he goes, no, you can't do it for that. It's going to cost this, at least that. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Because those kind of things are not numbers that I see every day and can go, yes, this is it. You know?
So in other words, the other night Tom was here with us, and he talked about how important it was to have a marketing arm and to have people that understood that side of the business and like the Barre area development. And so as a council member, you would be somebody who is looking to others to help facilitate such growth. And then
well, if you
but you're somebody, are you saying that you would be somebody supportive of that then?
Oh, I'd be really supportive of that.
Yep.
If you ask any business on Main Street today, or Walmart, pull up Facebook, how many Walmart ads will you see in the next 15 minutes? It must be worth something. They must be doing, because surely they don't waste money on stuff like that, right? So if you really want to, one of the things that in my business that people ask me about is, well, how come you don't have somebody doing your social media? Well, first of all, I can't afford it. But second of all, what I do changes daily. And sometimes in the next hour, let's say I'm going to make strawberry tarts tomorrow morning. I don't have time to send an email, to send a picture, to get somebody else to write me up something about strawberry tarts. I actually need to move a little more quickly on that. Right,
you could have brought some tonight.
I could have brought some strawberry tarts tonight.
Or lemon squares,
anything,
or lemon squares.
You know what? Now that hold up, wait a minute. I'm interrupting you, and I feel kind of bad about this, but not too bad. You come to the Barre Beat podcast, and you don't bring. Yeah, Raylene, am I correct on that? What's your thoughts on that?
Where's my lemon squares?
Yeah,
no, listen, I can't complain because I got spoiled rotten by Tim and his crew the other day when I went there. I got schnitzel meal, and I got cinnamon buns straight out of the oven that were like to die for. They were still sizzling when he put it on my table.
I had to remind her not to bite into it because it was molten sugar.
I'm just saying.
So let me ask you, Raylene, as a person that has diabetes, as a person, I have diabetes, obviously.
I have diabetes.
Yes. So
But we know that when I got there, my alarm had been going off. So when I got to Tim's,
you weren't taking care of it here.
Right. It had been going off. So when I got to Delicate Decadence, my sugar was only 63. It did spike a little bit, but it's nothing there's nothing, it's not anything.
What's a little bit?
It went to 189. Two
nothing.
No, 2 units of Novolog. Done.
189.
Done. Taken care of.
189, please.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I know how to do that stuff.
I'm so
but
sorry.
For real.
Yeah, development, and we did kind of talk about the Barre area development. And what is your thoughts on the Barre area development?
Well, as a business owner, if I can hire somebody who is specially made for a specific job, that's always the best thing to do, right? So if I'm going to bake bread and I want somebody who's baked bread somewhere else, I have a friend of mine, Justin, who owns La Panchada out in Northfield. If I'm ever working with a different kind of bread or something I really want to understand, he will come over and spend a couple hours and schooling me on, different kinds of bread and how to get the right rise out of it. But when it comes to something like Barre area development, I'm a big proponent of education and training. You really, really, really need to make sure that your specialist in that field knows what they're doing, but they also have the adequate training and the ability to do what needs to be done. Yeah. If we want to have somebody that really is going to market, Barre, Vermont, then let's do it. When it's funny, I was going to ask, I saw Scott from the Granite Museum today, And there was some place I had read somewhere that all the granite in the world comes from Vermont. And that can't be true because I think there's granite from different parts of the world. So I don't really understand that, and that's another story altogether.
All the good, well, so it's all the good granite comes from Barre, Vermont.
The good granite.
Yeah, it's the high quality granite.
Right.
The only
Gray
good
and-
granite that there is comes from Barre, Vermont.
Oh, okay.
Barre Gray is the best, and it's the only place you can get Barre Gray.
So,
'Cause,
but it was
well, I
very
mean, it's
interesting.
Barry.
So you would really want somebody here that knows what they're talking about. You can't just, if you want to part-time it and sort of do it, you can do that. But honest to goodness, if this is that important, you need to put your best foot forward.
And do you think it's important?
I think it's vital. Listen, we cannot, there's no way we can sustain the berry market with nonprofits and government. Now, if you believe that the government is going to continue to fund us and give us all the extra money that they have, then I'm excited for you. But that's not been the case as far as I know. I lived through the gas crisis of the 70s. I remember that, right?
I do not.
I do. But I remember it. The catch is the government's not going to fund us where we want to be. And the government, if they're going to fund us, they're going to fund us to the very bare minimum, not the exceedingly levels that we want, right? We want to shine. We don't want a dull glow. We want to shine.
So another question that we have here is, how are you going to be able to represent all your constituents on controversial issues?
Well, obviously in a lot of issues, there is going to be one answer, unless somebody comes up with an answer that gets everybody what they want, right? If you, let's say that I want trash day to pick up on Tuesday and you want trash day to pick up on Wednesday, then we really need to figure out, are they going to pick up at midnight? Are we going to have a Tuesday or Wednesday? Are we not going to do it at all? And a lot of the issues that people talk about and want to talk about these days, they're not that easy. They're hard questions. How do you want to deal with this? I think a lot of that is one of the things that I think we do is we don't spend enough time communicating. Everybody wants to tell me what they think. And I'm excited. I like to know what other people think, right? But at some point, the thinking has to switch to, okay, now let's talk about how we're going to do this in a way that protects everybody's rights, right? You have the right to live your life without it infringing upon mine. It's one of my beliefs. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to get involved with it, but it's your life. I want you to do it. But part of the things that we don't do anymore is we don't communicate with the other team. And that's really frustrating for me. I can actually say that there's only one or two people that I just don't like, right? Because they're abrasive, irritating, whatever the answer is, right?
I feel you, Tim.
Yeah, so don't I,
was gonna
Tim.
say
I
there was
feel you
nobody
too.
I like, but we know. But the point is at some point, even like at Barre Heritage Festival, when we're downtown and we're out in the park and we're listening to the show up on the stage, that to me is a lot of fun because there's people there watching the show from everywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know your political persuasion. I have no interest. I'm here to watch the Cloggers or the Baritones.
And maybe even a couple that you don't know that decided to get out and dance on the lawn, or some little kids play and laugh and giggle, and you enjoy all of that. You enjoy the entire atmosphere.
And it
around
doesn't
you.
have to be people that I know and love.
Right.
Right? But it has to be a genuine sense of mutual respect and mutual understanding. I don't need to embrace your thoughts. I just need to, I met a couple here before the pandemic that came into the bakery one day. This lady says, "Oh, do you know where this is?" Well, it was clear from talking to her she wasn't from here, right? And then we started talking, and I figured she told me where she was from and what they were doing, and then they had bought a house here, and they wanted to know what to go do and all this kind of stuff. Cheryl's been my friend for 3 or 4 years. You know, I've given her recommendations on where I like to go swimming. It's the place out past Moortown. That's my favorite swimming hole in all of Vermont. Or where I like to eat here, and this is a great meal. And these are things like that. Well, then Cheryl takes me out to go get Indian food in Montpelier. So part of that mutual understanding, and I know very little about Cheryl's personal life other than what she's told me. And I don't need to know it. I like Cheryl. Cheryl's a friend of mine. And her husband's a friend of mine. Now, he works at National Life now. She works at something to do with State Vermont Waters, something. And they're still friends of mine. I don't care. I don't need to know all that personal information.
So let's talk about some of the issues,
Okay.
right? Let's just hit the nail on the head.
Yes.
Article 7, the article to add the additional about $20,000 to the BADC budget for the marketing arm, which is Shannon Alexander, and just yes or no, do you support that measure?
Yes, I do.
All right.
One of the early mantras that was taught to me by my mentor, the great Jerry Nooney, who was the vice president of food and beverage at Sugarbush. He's the one that told me that buying that bakery was the best thing on the planet for me. Says to me, never be fooled. You have to spend money to make money. Have a nice day.
Very true.
Very true, yeah.
Very true.
So something that's very near and dear to my heart is the Barre Partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And, anybody that talks to me knows how much I love the partnership, how much I love Tracy, the Tracy Lewis, the director. One of the things that we're going through right now is the issue of whether or not there's no whether or not we have put on the market the Wheelock building, and I was extremely against it. I was against the listing of the building, and then when the partnership came up and said, hey, pump the brakes, I was like, okay, we'll pump the brakes, but the other counselors were not. I shouldn't say all of them. Not all of them were that way, but as a body, the council did not pump the brakes, put the building on the market. A week later, the partnership came back with an offer, and I'm only giving out information that's public information that you can get from the Times-Argus or that has been released via emails that came from individuals such as our mayor to constituents. The part of the whole package of it is similar to the the People's Health and Wellness Clinic. And the question that I have for you, and you're kind of like taking a shot in the dark on this because you're not going to know all the details, but I would like to know where you are on the acquisition of the Barre Partnerships, the acquisition of the Wheelock building by the Barre Partnership. What's your thoughts on that?
One of the things that Dave Delcor did an interview with me last week, and he put this phrase in the interview that you don't have to spend a lot of time debating what Tim thinks. He usually has an answer pretty quick, and he doesn't need to deliberate, which is true. I think that the Barre Partnership needs a face in town. I think that building has enough historical preference in this town that would be a fantastic face for the Barre Partnership. I think it should do it. I see no reason why not. Listen, one of the things that they're always talking about in business is branding, right? Think about Bob Nelson right across the street. Mm-hmm. Branding. Bob Nelson's one of those places that I went into when we first moved here 18 years ago. While that store has changed and moved and expanded here and there, it's Bob Nelson's.
Right.
It's the way it is. I remember my child's first year sitting on the floor wrapping presents with the girls that work at Bob Nelson's. And I've never forgotten that. The branding of that business was key. And so even today, when my youngest child goes in there, Julia will go in there and want to look at stuff. They will follow her around and help her. That's the branding, right? So when I think about Tracy at Barre Partnership and the guy before, Josh, was it Josh? No, who was before Tracy?
Josh Jerome.
Josh Jerome.
Well, Jeffrey Tupper Giles was intro.
Josh Jerome, and Jeffrey did a great fill-in, right? So Josh Jerome before him, they were branding. Their interaction with the local businesses, with getting businesses on the map, and to really work with the city to publicize what we were doing, were fantastic. I will tell you that. I mean, I don't know that anybody works any harder with the Heritage Festival than Tracy. And when she picked up the craft fair after Thanksgiving, people lost their mind. They couldn't wait till this year coming up to come back again. I know people that were like, oh my God, she's awesome. Now, I didn't get to go to the craft fair. My wife did several times, but I'll go next year. I got to help unload some trucks.
And you actually have a connection to the Barre Partnership. I'm assuming, are you a member?
I was a member on the board for a year and a couple of years. I really enjoyed that time. I like the planning process. I don't get involved. But when COVID hit for the bakery and staffing became a real issue, I could very rarely make a meeting. And I'd always told Tracy knew that I was there. If she needed something, she could call. If she needed, hey, can you do this? Can you get me some cookies for this? Yes. I would hide the elf every year and the Easter egg or whatever it was. But, I like what they do. It's easy to serve when you like the mission of what the person you're serving is.
All right. You got a question there, Raylene?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I think we pretty much answered as far as I was going to ask about the partnership and then Barre area development and how you would, I guess it's not really a question. It's an assumption of mine that, again, as a business owner, how you are able to connect and communicate with many people on every single day, and not everybody that walks through your door is going to have the same thoughts, opinions, whatever.
No, and that's
but obviously you adapt that. That's why you're still in business, because you welcome everybody into your business.
Well, we welcome. We've only had to get no trespass orders a few times for people who really didn't want to play by my rules.
Right, which was be respectful. I'm assuming that the
I mean,
rule was
you
they
come in
were
and don't
not
like
being
the cake.
respectful.
I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
You come in there nasty to me. Well, then we need to have a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the catch is this: I'm an adult. You're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
I go to bed about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. You probably stay up real late. I'm not going to fault you for that, although I think you're wrong. But the catch is we have to move past the petty silliness, right? And if you come to me, there's been several controversies on the school board that people didn't like things that the school was doing, right? So right after Trump was voted out of office, people there was a stack of legislation that was pushed through about the school. Transgender stuff, bathroom sharing. It came through within the next 2 weeks after Trump was gone, right? Parents were up in arms, a lot of them. I have a special needs child. Wasn't my favorite thing either. Mm-hmm. But once the people that were in charge of the school explained how this would work and what this would look like, this became a little more tolerable and didn't infringe on anybody's rights at all.
Mm-hmm. So you had to have an open mind and be willing to listen and learn so that you could proceed.
Yeah, you gotta. Listen, if you had told me that I was going to take a teenage boy into my house, right? And with my two daughters that he didn't know, and we were going to make this work, I had friends of mine said, "What are you doing? Why would you do this?" And we had a discussion about such things.
Especially from the background that I came from.
Yeah, he came from a real hard background.
So speaking about your daughters, I just want to point out that Julia says, "Hi, Dad."
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Julia.
So give her a hi.
Hi, big head girl.
And let's hear from the gentleman sitting next to you. Let's hear what you have to say about Tim and how you know him and how he has or hasn't helped you in life, influenced your life and the path you're on now.
Sure. So before I get into kind of my story here, I guess, just keeping it kind of within the same realm of conversation that we're in right now. Tim and I have had many political discussions over the years, going back from, high school all the way up to my adult life. And, a lot of our political views align, but there are some that don't. And some of the best conversations I've ever had with anybody about anything political that I've disagreed with were with Tim. He has a sarcastic tone that we've all heard a million times.
Way.
But it's once you know how to deal with it, once you know exactly where it comes from within, it's some of the best conversations that I've ever had politically. And I am one of those people that don't open up to a whole lot of people politically, just because of what you can get yourself into. But yeah, so I had a fairly rough upbringing. Barry has a reputation, and I was probably part of that reputation when I was a child, just from the family that I was born into. I have a lot of great people in my family, and then I have a lot of not so, great people in my family. And I had a rough upbringing. And when I met Tim, I was kind of living on couches, just bouncing around. One day I decided I was riding in a car with my brother, and I was looking out the window, and it was a really bright, shiny day, and I said, you know what, I think I need to go back to church. It had been like 4 years. And I made my way back that Sunday. I was sitting in the back in the pews by myself, and the Pastor Ralph, was no longer at the Methodist Church. I had known him from my previous ties with the church, again, like 4 years prior to this. He said, I have somebody I'd like to introduce you to. And up walks this giant. And, he was very welcoming, but it was a very odd situation for me. I was very independent. I kind of stuck to myself. I didn't talk to a whole lot of people. I had a very small group of people that I associated with in life. But he asked me to come over and have dinner with him, Stacy, and the girls. And I thought, that is weird. But I went back that night or that day, and I thought, what could harm? I got over to his house. We had again, green beans that I choked down. He's tried to get me to eat them like 40 different ways, and I still don't like them. And then we just got talking about life. I understood right then and there that Tim's a very passionate person. He's very passionate about his beliefs. He's very passionate about making a difference in the community. He's very passionate, not even just as a community, but as every one-on-one conversation that he has with anybody. It's him looking for the positive, or even if there isn't a positive in that conversation, it's looking for a way into a positive situation. And so he dropped me off that night, and he said he went back and had a conversation with Stacy about me and cried.
I cried a lot.
I just had told him my life story. He was very easy to open up to, very easy to talk to. it was the next day he asked me if I wanted a more stable living environment to help me get through school. I had actually failed my freshman year of high school because I never even went. I think I only went to gym, and that was just to see some friends. But it's hard to deal with schoolwork and homework when you're in a situation where you care more about where you're going to put your head down at night than where you're, when your assignments due. And so I pondered it. I think I pondered it for like a day or two.
Yeah.
And finally got back to him, and I just felt like it was the right move. With the short time that I had known him, it just felt right. And he took me in. He took me under his wing. Now, I wasn't perfect under his wing, and boy, did I give him some hard times. But he handled it like a champ, and I still call him when I need, advice. And he's been a blessing.
Nice. I do have a follow-up question on that. So your hatred for green beans, does it stem from the fact that they squeak as you chew them?
Oh, it's the taste.
It's just the
It's
taste?
something about the taste. I think the closest he got was when he made a batch of fresh ones. First of all, the cans are off the table regardless. Yeah. But the batch of the fresh ones where he did some orange zest on it, I could actually tolerate enough to swallow it.
You need to fry them up with some brown sugar and garlic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've learned to cook the ones that they have down at China Moon with the garlic on them. And the kids are like, oh, Dad, could you make those green beans?
Yeah, the fried green beans are the greatest.
Tracy Wells says that your mom hates them too.
Yeah.
I don't know who Tracy Wells is.
That's my mother.
So Tracy, is the question for you is it because they squeak it when you chew them?
She's probably going to come back with the same thing. It's a texture thing probably for her and a taste thing.
Yeah. I don't mind green beans. I love green bean casserole.
Yeah,
if you put enough salt on anything and enough flavoring,
gravy. Gravy makes everything great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and just to follow up on that, one of the things that Damien taught us that was really kind of cool is I had been in the military for 20 years, right? So I really wasn't around a lot of old people. I'd never seen homelessness. You're not really homeless in the military. Mm-hmm. And you don't really, you have enough clothing because they're going to give you the clothing you need. So that's not an issue. And you're going to have 3 meals a day. That's not an issue, right? So when I met Damien and we came back, I talked to Stacy, then I called Ralph across the street who was still up. So, okay, what can you tell me about this kid? And, it was just like one of those things that was like, holy Moses, I could make a difference here. And I look at the 12 years that I've owned the bakery almost, I've had any number of employees from the Department of Labor, Department of Justice, Department of Corrections, Department of Education, and just anywhere. And I think about the opportunity to make a difference with all of these kids. It's funny. At one time, I had all wrestlers that worked for me. And boy, could those kids eat. Holy crap, could they eat. And then there was a bunch of kids from Websterville, and they were good kids, but they were all girls, which was strange.
And when Sadie was there?
Who?
Sadie,
yeah. And Sadie was a great employee. And then I have now a bunch of baseball players, which is they come in waves. Mm-hmm. But, several of the kids, one is finishing up his degree in Boston. One of them is now a certified welder in Burlington. Some of these kids have gone on to do some pretty interesting things, and they're not baking, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But, and Damien, who has the best handwork ever with dough, doesn't do it at all. He's just got a good knack with the dough, with rolling stuff, and he doesn't do it at all.
So, is there anything that you can say that you have learned from all of these kids? Like, and what have you learned from people that have lived maybe not so great lives and have had some rough times?
Well,
What is your biggest takeaway?
I'm the oldest of 8 children. The oldest. Now, 3 or 4 of us graduated high school. 2 of us graduated college. I have a sister who's heavily addicted, been that way for years. But, one of the things that, I said to my dad when he was getting ready to pass was that, everybody's got their own route. I can't fix this. I can just do my best to make it better. And, everybody has a different struggle. I like food. That's all there is to it. I love Diet Coke, but I can't drink that all the time. And so part of that is that everybody's got a different struggle and a different life and a different addiction and a different thing that they want to do. And learning to figure that out helps us to get along. I've had kids that work with me that there is no joking any day of the week. They're just not humored children at all. I've had children you've had to speak to very sternly, because if you don't speak to them sternly, they just don't seem to get it. Mm-hmm. I've had children that really need you to put their arm around them, explain to them why they need to go wash those dishes. Everybody is so different, and learning to reach into that is really hard.
So
same with the council. Yeah. Everybody's different. I mean, there's a little bit for you to learn about each person that sits on the seat.
It's definitely been a difficult learn in the last year or 2 or 3.
Well, I mean, everybody, you have to be careful that you're not caught up in somebody else's agenda.
That's a
Their
good point.
agenda doesn't have to be my agenda. Mm-hmm. When I decided to run for city council, I'm not running because I have some agenda like, some dark side of the moon sort of thing where I'm trying to pull puppet strings and get, my way, because I'm not that person. I don't know how to do that. I actually am here to serve. I want to serve. I want to be your representative. That's what I want to do. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want you to tell me what you think, and let me see if I can help make this become a reality.
So recently, City Council we had made an investment in the Ward 5 building, the schoolhouse, and it's now going to be 9 units, 4 2-bedroom, I think 3 1-bedroom, and then 2 studios, I think. And City Council made that decision about the $250,000 from ARPA. The question for you would be, where would have you fallen on that line?
All right, so this is what got me. A good friend of mine, Charlie Goodman, out at Goodman Construction out in Waitsfield, is a really good friend of mine. He's somebody I've learned to really trust what he thinks about building, because he's really impressed me with what he knew. Our youngest child walks with a walker, and I said, Charlie, could you come and fix our steps? Because we live in an 1894 house. And so Charlie came and put up these steps. We're like, holy crap, Charlie, just need steps. But now Julia can get in and out of the house by herself, and we don't have to carry up the stairs, which is really nice. So I asked Charlie these questions right off the city agenda, the cost and the numbers and all that stuff. I wanted to know if this made sense to him, because I'm not a builder, right? If you ask me how much a chicken pot pie cost, I can tell you that. I have that written down. So, I haven't really weighed in on this because I'm not in that position to make that kind of decision. But the questions I would want to know is, what's it going to cost to renovate the school? That's the number one question. Is there anything hazardous in there? What's the renovation look like? What do those costs look like? The other one is that school's been empty for a number of years. How many years?
Well, I mean, it's technically been utilized by the the Barre Housing Authority, but technically it's been empty for 26,
quite a while.
7 years.
So I'm curious about renovation of the building. I'm curious about the historical preservation of the building. I'm also really curious about, is it cost effective what you're going to do? Right? So we live in an old house. It's, if you, the living area is 2,500 square feet, right? So between the attic and the basement, it's a lot of house, right? And so that's where I think that we really need to come up with some housing. I think it really needs to be done. I think that housing people in hotels is not cost effective, right? I think that those kind of things need to be figured out, and it's going to take some real serious decision. Where do you want this money to go? I've heard from a couple people that live in the neighborhood, some that really didn't want it, some that really didn't care. Don't know. It's not really my area. But I would say that, we need to come up with something. And sometimes the answer is, this is it, we're all done. Right? That sounds horrible. But if we have the funds, they need to be spent, they need to be utilized. And Downstreet has a plan, and they have a plan to get this done. They know what the costs are going to be ahead of time. And where that money is coming from, that seems to make sense to me.
All right. And I just want to point out, thank you, Connie, for correcting me. Sometimes I make mistakes. Sometimes. No, not very often. And she just wanted to say that 10 years ago, they had some offices in there about 10 years ago.
That's what I thought. I thought there was something in there for a while that was even housing authority, I think, rented the space for offices or something.
I didn't know that they were actually in there. I know the housing authority was in there, but now that I'm thinking about that, they had moved about 10 years ago, and that's where they're okay. So that makes way more sense now that I'm thinking about this.
And then Alice would like to know, what about the roads? Have you driven Prospect Street lately?
Oh my God. I live on the very popular French Street. That was a big road controversy about 10 years ago because it was so bad. And I actually didn't want it paved because it would make people drive slower. If you're driving too fast and you hit a bump and your transmission falls out, well, then you're going to slow down, right? But
we should do that at certain places that people know.
I'll tell you. Here's a funny story for you. The Germans, when you ride, they'll put big rocks in the road to kind of make people slow down, come in and out of towns. And on a snowy day one day, I went flying by one of these rocks. It scared the bejesus out of me because I slid over in the ditch and it was a bad day. But kind of the deal is I had these questions years ago. Peter Anthony was the mayor when I had this question. Where is the money that you were supposed to be spending on upkeeping the roads? And he looked at me like I, had spoken a foreign language, and I was sure it was English. Because if you're going to build a road and you're not going to maintain it, well, what's the purpose of that? And it's going to be gone before you know it. I don't really get it, but everybody's different. Right? So one of the worst things in my life for me is to have a piece of equipment that doesn't work. I want it out of there. I want this space. You can have space or stuff. I choose space. But when it comes to like the roads, I tell you, there needs to be somebody needs to come up with the major plan and map it out and say, this is every road in Barre. And this is the prioritization of when we're going to fix the roads, right? From A to B. From French Street to C Street. Don't care. Wherever it is on the list. So then what you can tell people when they go to buy a house in Barre, well, this road's not going to be fixed for another 47 years. Do you really want to buy a house here? So we can save ourselves the stress and struggle of knowing how that works. So you don't move into a house that's on a road that's on a street that's got a bad road, and then you are downtown at City Hall complaining about your roads. Well, you could just buy a house somewhere else.
All right.
Or you could buy the house there because you want people to go slow on your road.
So they certainly go slow on Nelson.
Yes, they do.
So I think at this moment, we've already hit an hour, I believe. Yep. So I think at this moment, what I'm going to do is give you, your last pitch. Tell the voters why should they vote for Tim Boltin.
Well,
Go for it.
I moved to Barre, Vermont because we wanted to, not because we had to. I went to school in Montpelier because we wanted to, not because we had to. And that's really kind of cool for me. And then when I bought the business, Delicate Decadence, I bought it because I wanted to, not because I had to. And what I'm getting at is, don't you want a representative of your thoughts and ideas because they want to represent you? I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to build a park in my name. I'm not trying to get a street named after me. I'm here to be part of the solution to the issues we have in Barre. And I like that idea. Working together, becoming more communal with one another is what we need to do to make Barre a better place. I like, when I was at Sugarbush, there was a phrase that said, "Be better here," that was their slogan. And I thought that was the coolest slogan ever. And it was just a spur of the moment thought. I think that Barre is on the verge of doing something really great when we finally get past the petty bickering, when we finally figure out what we're going to be focused on, when we finally make a decision that we're going to be fighting to make our city one of the best in the state. We have the opportunity.
And
All
am I allowed to say something?
Sure.
Too?
Well, I mean, I
Do you
suppose.
think, am I allowed to make a plug since we're the only ones here and no one else came? It's not like, so I can technically at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we we did extend the offer again. We extended the offer,
Right, and I've already said how I feel anyways publicly, and I can have that opinion, and so my opinion is, or what I would like to say is that I believe, Tim, that your commitment to the city, its movement forward, its beauty, its vitality can be proven simply by your space. The fact that you moved it down, I mean, it was just this small, tiny little place, and what it is now, and what how nice it feels when you walk in there, the atmosphere that's in there, just everything about it. That's a piece that you've brought to the city, and I think that alone speaks volumes for your commitment to moving the city forward in a really great direction.
All right. Well, I certainly want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Those that have watched, we appreciate the viewership. Raylene, of course, we want to say thank you for being here as always.
Thanks for letting me come.
You are Barre Beat.
I am.
And Tim, thank you for coming, and Damien, thank you for coming as well. We really appreciate the opportunity to get an opportunity to meet the candidates.
Yes, we do.
And it's, sometimes things don't work out, and not every.
Not for lack of trying.
It's not a lack of trying, and I know that there was a candidate forum earlier today, and I know that when I was asked if I would go to a candidate forum at the public library, I said that only if Steve Pappas was going to moderate. As my concern is more about the moderator than it is the location. You can have a location that you're not friendly with, but the moderator my opinion was it should be a person that does not have a political agenda. And
Well, when we invite people here, we don't. We tell them they can choose their own moderator.
Correct. Or
And
we
you
pick-
will even leave the building. We'll
Right.
take down all of
Yep.
the signage and
Yep.
posters. It can literally just be a space that
Right.
is
right. And
broadcast on Barre City Community fan page only. They can pick their
Yep.
own moderator, have their own
Yep.
questions, and but that it's okay. Everybody has the right to choose how they want to spread their message, no matter how you want to spread your message. I mean, it's just we have on Air It Out. We have 27 advertisers. Those are advertisers that we are very much grateful, thankful for. And there are all kinds of others that we wish we had that choose to advertise on radio or the newspaper still. And they can do that. That's their right. And
Yep.
so
just wanted to
We're
make
good with that.
comment. We are going to try this week to get a lot of shows in.
Yes, we
I'm
are.
working with Raylene, and we're going to try to get a couple more shows in this week because it is the last week. I'm a shameless plugger for the BADC. I hope folks vote yes on Article 7.
Me too.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Me too.
And of course,
For now.
Yeah. For now. Maybe we'll have another Tom Lowe's on night, which was amazing. I highly recommend folks go and watch that from Saturday night. With that,
And if you have any further questions for Tim, if you end up watching this later, you did not watch it live, please ask your questions.
right, I would
In the comment
recommend.
section.
I would actually recommend that they go to his Facebook page, which is
Boltin for Barre.
Facebook.com
Boltin for Barre.
Boltin for Barre.
Right.
And folks can ask there. With that, again, want to say thank you for watching the Barre Beat podcast live from Fly in the Wall Productions, Main Street, Barre, Vermont. I hope everyone has a lovely evening, and hopefully we'll see you later this week.
Don't forget to vote.
Yes, don't forget to vote March 7th.